Hey everyone, welcome back to the Middle Aged Metalhead podcast. This is, of course, me, Abhishek. And on this edition of the Middle Aged Metalhead podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to review an album by a band that I really enjoy. It's a band called, as you must have guessed from the title of this video, it's a band called Ambush, and they have come up with a new album. So these guys have been flying the flag of old school heavy metal in the modern age, so as to say. They're loud, they're proud, and with their new record, they're proving that classic heavy metal, still has a lot of teeth, a lot of things to offer in 25. So let's dive in. Let's figure out where these guys are from, what they have been doing all this while, and whether this album is worth getting on physical or at least putting it on your streaming list once and for all. So just to tell you guys more about Ambush, they are from Vaxio, Sweden. They are a Swedish band, and they have been added in the scene from 2013 or so. They're a part of what people usually call the new wave of traditional heavy metal, a movement of band who are taking the antiquated approach to heavy metal, the stuff which bled through the veins of Judas Priest, of Iron Maiden, of Accept, Manowar, even the soaring vocals, the guitar harmonies, the blazing leads, the incendiary riff work. So that is essentially, if that is what tickles your pickle, this is essentially a band that you should definitely be checking out. The debut album was called Firestorm. That is when I actually discovered these guys. That came out in 2014. It was very raw as compared to a 2025 outing. It was very scrappy. It made no apologies for sounding the way it did. Now we have to understand that in Scandinavia, it's still 1995. You still have bands who, without the pretense that actually plagues a lot of the US and the UK scenes, which is more trendy, which is, for the lack of a better word, more core oriented, more, the likes of your Sleep Tokens of the world, etc. But in Scandinavia and especially in Europe, there's still the type of heavy metal that you will see a lot of people on this podcast praise. A lot of that stuff is still in vogue. So I'm sure that, if you've stumbled onto this podcast, you already know this. However, coming back to the topic at hand, 2 years later, Ambush released Desecrated in 2016, which was almost a tighten up version of what Firestorm was. More speed, more bite, more hooks. And in 20 is, in my opinion, when they released, which got them to the dance, the breakthrough album. This, it was called Infidel. And this is an album which actually showed a lot of growth, a lot of maturity. It had a cleaner production, it had bigger hooks, and the band was ready to move beyond just another retro act, which essentially many of these bands, have fall into that trap. So fast forward to 25, we have Evil in All Dimensions. So let's dive in. What were the first impressions of this album? I've heard it a bunch of times over the past few weeks till it was released. It, it's just 9 tracks. It is around about 40 minutes or so. This album, the first thing you notice is this album does not overstay its welcome. I was kind of, I wouldn't say underwhelmed, but adequately whelmed with the initial singles that they had released. I remember Masquerova, which is the second track of this album, was released as a single, and I was like, it's okay. I mean, I personally do not like a lot of sing along vocals, a lot of sing along, vocals which follow a very sing song, very happy guitar riff. That's something which I don't enjoy, which is the tack which these guys took Masquerova. But if you ignore that, and I still don't enjoy that song, it it is a very consistent record. Right from the opening seconds, you're hit with just walls of riff, the kind of falsetto scream that will make you, like, close your eyes and feel like you're in the middle of this giant festival and the band is playing in front of you. The production deserves a mention too. It's a self-produced album with Jamie Hales handling the mix. The result is one of their most powerful sounding record yet. They have not sounded this venomous, this essential thus far. The guitars are spread really wide across across your sounding stage, wherever you choose to listen to this music, over your earphones or in your home and theater system. The drums especially feel massive without drowning everything out. Usually what happens is, in such productions or in such albums, one instrument or a couple of instruments tends to overtake it all, especially when a band is producing it themselves. But here everything is well balanced, and just adds a lot of weight in the way the earlier albums kind of lacked, if I may say so myself. So most importantly, the star, as in all Ambush albums, is Oscar Jacobson. He is the vocalist, and his vocals are front and center. I prefer my vocals, especially when it comes to black metal and when it comes to traditional heavy metal. I prefer the vocals which hit you right at the at the center of your head. So his vocals, right, then in this scenario, it's just front and center, and it absolutely owns the album. There are amazing guitar lines, there are amazing riffs, etc. But this is an aspect of this album which I think you will take back after you're long done listening to it. It's the vocals. There's some great tracks on this album, like the opener, the title track, "Evil in All Dimensions," comes storming out of the gate. It's a charging gallop. It's urgent. It's infectious. It's a kind of song that makes you want to think of Iron Maiden's "The Trooper." But it has a darker, meaner edge than that song. Jakobsen's vocals again, it sets the tone immediately. The riffing has that classic urgent push that, something like a "Fast as a Shark," or like I mentioned, "The Trooper," or something like a Motorhead song from the late 70s and the early 80s that makes you want to gear up for, just pump your fists up and raise a glass of beer or whatever, however you want to consume this kind of music. The couple of tracks later, Masquerova, again, like I mentioned, it has that signature Iron Maiden gallop. But again, a very sing-song nature is something which I personally do not enjoy, but it is a song which I know for a fact that a lot of people, some of my peers also have spoken very highly about. So make of it what you will. Then comes one of my favorite songs of this album. It's a song called Iron Sign. So if these guys were looking for the next live anthem, this is it. The chorus is simple, it's catchy. You can already hear the crowd just going berserk for it. I know a few years earlier, there's a band from Canada called Skullfist who had made their way down to our shores, and they put up a rip-roaring set at Bangalore open air. So if anyone's listening, whoever is in management, if you guys can get Ambush, dude, I do not care about fucking Ginger or whoever you guys get. I am buying that ticket because I really want to see these guys live, especially in that setting playing these songs. It's not the most adventurous song on the record, but sometimes you just want to have that straightforward, heads down, heavy metal song that gets everyone moving. And Iron Sign in that, in my opinion, absolutely nails it. Midway through the album, there is a song which might come across as a curveball to some people. There's a song called "I Fear the Blood." This is their first attempt at a real ballad. Starting with an acoustic intro before swelling, going on into a full-blown power ballad territory. Now, if you have heard me enough on this channel, you know for a fact I love that shit. I love a little bit of cheese to the side of the blackened and the a little more the death metal stylings that I also enjoy. I enjoy a little bit of cheese there. Guns N' Roses being one of my favorite bands. Wasp is something which I absolutely enjoy. So this is straight up my territory. It's an ambitious for a band that usually deals with just a raw speed and a lot of fury. But for some listeners like myself, it adds that welcome variety, showing a vulnerable side to a band that's rare in their catalog. And finally, if you have to talk about another key song of this album, it's this closer called "Run Like Hell." I know it has nothing to do with the Pink Floyd track. It's not a cover, but it's one which just defines a pure speed metal mayhem. Now, I've always held a long-standing belief that an album can always be elevated by the last song because that is essentially how you will remember the rest of the album with. And, throughout the ages, we've seen that, right? From Sabbath to Reese to Metallica, Megadeth, they've always had great outros. I mean, fucking Bathory and Emperor and stuff like that. Even if you have to go to the extreme territory, the last track always defines how an album will be received and how it will remain in the consciousness of a listener. So I think it barrels forward, "Run Like Hell" by Ambush. It barrels forward with reckless abandon, if I may say so. And then, just as you think it's going to crash into a wall, it just blossoms into a big symphonic piece. It's over dramatic. I love that shit in my heavy metal. It's over the top, something again which I love, and it leaves you that sense of not an exhaustion, but it just makes for like a great cathartic piece to end this album on. So firstly, what works for this album is the energy. Ambush sound absolutely fired up on this record. The riffs are fucking tight. Like I mentioned, the performances are great. There is an inherent hunger that a lot of these bands have, which is why we are drawn towards the more extreme and some of the most underground kind of bands that we discuss on this channel. There's a palpable hunger that you can feel. This isn't a band that is going through the motions. It's a band which is swinging for the fences. And that is something which I love. Obviously, I touched upon the variety bit of it. For most of the record is fast, but they do slow it down a little bit. Like I mentioned, "I Fear the Blood" is one, "Masquerova" is another. There is another song called "The Reaper," I believe, and they're just this is a band which is so confident in what they do, and the endless touring. You have to remember that the last album came out 5 years ago. So all that they've been doing all this while is touring. So they've honed that craft, and it shows on this record. And thirdly, like I mentioned, the vocals. Jakobsen is just a great fucking singer. And here he's just on another level. His falsettos are fucking great. His mid-range has that grit which defined the older bands like Queensryche, which defined older bands like Fate's Warning. And his delivery has like a lot of personality. He doesn't hit those notes. He sells them. There's that conviction, that word I keep coming back to. He sells you these ideas. So where does this album leave us? Where does this leave Ambush? And where does it leave Evil in All Dimensions in my year-end list? For me, I feel this is their boldest statement yet. It's a record that captures everything that people love about traditional heavy metal. The speed, the power, the high-flying vocals, the guitar histrionics, while also showing a willingness to take risks. Not every experiment is gonna pay off. Like for instance, there are a couple of songs in this album that I don't think that works, but there are a lot of things. The negatives essentially outweigh. Don't get undermined by the positives. If you are new to Ambush, this is a good place to start as any. It is polished, it's powerful, it gives you that full picture of what this band is capable of. And also, if you've been a band since the early days of Firestorm and Desecrator, you'll be very happy to know that these guys are just moving forward. This feels like an actual reward, the proof that the band is still hungry and is still evolving. And despite this being self-produced, they know exactly what they're doing. So to put it simply, this is a record worth your time. If you have to rate this, I'm feeling again, like my previous review, I'm feeling a very strong 8 out of 10. 110%. I will definitely recommend this to you, and make sure you go out of your way. And if you find yourself physical merch, or some physical series of or vinyls of Ambush to buy, please get them for yourself. Anyway, so thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Abhishek. You have been with us on Middle Aged Metalhead. Thanks for hanging out with me. And remember, we might be getting to the middle age, but the metal it never grows old. So until next time, keep it loud, keep it proud, and keep it metal. I'll see you guys again.